Cooperative propaganda always succeeds, best in societies of smallholders approximately equal. The face of British agricultural society was almost different from other most peasant countries at that time, and the smallholders were generally unequal. Propaganda is easy where cultivators are mostly doing the same things: cows, dairy farming, pigs and poultry for a common market. In Britain, this was rare. It is noticeable that when the propaganda started, some of its first successes were purchase of fertilizer and feeding stuffs. No doubt, the individualist English temper and English tradition counted for much, including the snob tradition of the girl in the ballad who left her father mowing the barley, married the lawyer, and lived in a happy content of life in a station well above her. The type of smallholder who thought of himself as having made the first step towards the position of one of his bigger neighbors, the man with eyes fixed on a station well above him, was not likely to be a good member of a cooperative society for the smallholder. Or the smallholders of Exholm at that time. It was written in 1913 that if they furnish any indications of the future, the men who are going to teach the English farmers to cooperate have got an uphill task before them. In 1911, the majority of value of Evesham growers were keenly on the lookout for some special private market and content to the business through some friend who has taken dealing the ordinary distributive cooperative society at Pershore was well supported. The Evesham men were so narrowly individualist at that time that they had not got beyond the rudiments of joint action even in their relations with the railway companies, who were always complaining in response to the growers' attacks on high transport judges that they could seldom induce smallholders or large at Evesham or anywhere else to cooperate enough to secure the low rates offered for truckload consignments. Where many Western countries, as we know that the small holdings were not creation but survival in many developing countries nowadays. The competitive efficiency was often low and the standard of living of the holder and his family low with it. Years later, it was possible to say of the small holdings of Carmarthenshire in England that their cultivation was settled to often merely a copy of small scale of large farming practice, whereas the real interest of smallholders lies in a certain degree of specialization. The criticism at that time would have been true far beyond Carmarthen and beyond Wales. In 1907 and 14, there was plenty of small third-rate milk farming near the industrial towns, and even the new and specialized holdings might not be able to maintain themselves in competition where there was free trade and land. At Sandy, for example, by 1907, a start for the small man was getting difficult because good land easy of access was taken up by successful growers to add to their holdings. Some of the most successful growers were big men. Some of the small men had replaced other small men, ruined in the Great Depression. When it came marketing, the really small holder was normally at a disadvantage unless you were working for an uncritical local market like the milkman of Lancaster, or for a local market not yet satiated. In some districts in England, the expert criticism of the Act of 1907 ran, smallholders have been set too thick in one place so that they must swamp the strictly local demand for poultry and vegetables and other special produce. Of course, the critics continues. According to the other supporters of the movement, look to see each small holding community become cooperative, pooling the produce of its members and selling it in bulk. But such a system has not had not been seen at work in England at that time. And in conclusion, when we come to nowadays, we see that in many developing countries, smallholders have several difficulties actually in marketing, in producing, in planning, and most of the developing countries cannot cope up with the smallholders, because if you look at the number of smallholders, and there are huge number of farms in a developing country or less developed countries, and it is not an easy task for a government to financially support all smallholders. And we need to see, I think, the best cases from developed countries, and the England case showed us it was very difficult to induce traditional farmers at that time in England to cooperate. But after that, with the enlargement of the agricultural holdings, I think we are mentioning the best cases for England in agricultural sector in parallel with the industrialization, and they succeeded very well in England. But we cannot say the same things for other developing countries as long as they continue subsidizing very small scale agricultural holdings, and they are just making them live in their life, and but the purchasing power of the smallholders and the lobbying power are still very limited, and I think most of the countries need to change some formula in their small holdings.